Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Are we getting some nuggets from this amazing conference?
Yes.
I tell you what, I'm so excited to be with you today to share with you about thriving in the workplace, not only this year, but in the future years too. And I just want to prepare you a little bit because some of what I want to share with you is a little crystal ball, kind of like what could happen. And some other things that I have to share with you are data points from what Marsh McLennan agency has been able to do in terms of research. So the crystal ball things we'll have to kind of give some thought to see how those apply in our organization. But some of the data is pretty powerful. And so I'm excited to walk through this with you today for the next few minutes. So what I want to talk about is what do we see happening in 2024? What are the things that employers are going to be facing? And then we want to think a little bit about our strategies. What are the strategies we're employing today? Maybe what are we wanting to shift in the future? Looking at our benefit strategy. And then probably one of the themes we're going to hear a lot today is mindset, right? How do we look at things? How do we talk about things? How do we think about things in terms of the employee experience? So I'm Amy Letke. They've introduced me. I'm here with Marsh McLennan agency, but I've been in HR for a long time, 30 plus years. How many of you are in the HR field? Pretty much everybody in some respect. Congratulations. It's changed a lot, hasn't it? And I've been lucky, like probably many of you, to serve in many industries, whether it's manufacturing, professional service, and even in technology. And we know that there's just rapid change in all these industries all the time. So let's take a look at some of these challenges. And I just want to check in with you because what we're saying, what our crystal ball looks like is challenges are going to be attracting, retaining talent, getting more done with less, and then what are we going to do about all this tech change? Are these things that resonate with some of you? Yes? Good, because these are things we think are going to continue to be trends as we are looking to evaluate our employee experience in the future. So one of the things we know after COVID is HR teams have to be resilient, don't they? And we always are renewing and invigorating ourselves. And hopefully by coming to events like this helps us get invigorated about what the future is going to look like. And so when I think about what a resilient structure looks like, it looks kind of like this. And when I think about the three tenets that we just talked about of attracting and retaining talent, and then getting more done with less, and addressing issues with technologies, this is an infrastructure that I think we have to really think about. It's not often that I talk to HR teams and strategic HR partners where they're struggling with infrastructure issues. Maybe it's their employee handbook that just constantly needs to be updated because now the states are doing all these crazy things, making changes overnight. How do we keep up with that? But the infrastructure pieces of job descriptions, policies, and procedures are not going to go away. They're things we're going to have to really pay attention to in the future. Same thing when we think about tech. How are we recruiting? Is our technology meeting the needs of our potential employees? How are we implementing those strategies? And then how are we getting and giving feedback? One of the things that I'm seeing a lot of employers do now is working on coaching for leaders. And Jennifer talked about that this morning from DocuSign about, when we become a leader, we've got to realize what we're signing up for, right? It means we've got to be compassionate, we've got to be caring, we've got to listen, and we've got to train our teams on how to do that sometimes because they're not just going to get it on their own. Not always, right? So these are some things that we want to think about to help us become more resilient. And when I think about this concept of resilient supervisors and resilient leaders, it's really about thinking about that frontline experience. Because when our leaders, if you're in a manufacturing plant, or I know a lot of you are in the office now, your people are there too. But one thing I know is for certain is that employees leave managers, don't they? They don't always leave the company, they leave their manager. So when we think about dealing with attrition and challenges, probably the best thing we can do is train our leaders. I want to share an example with you that I thought was really impactful for me. I had a chance to visit one of our clients in Minnesota a few weeks ago. Now, this client is a meat packing company. Meat packing. Employees go to work there every day, and they're working in a minimum of 30 degrees Fahrenheit every day. Sometimes it's even more frigid than that. And we're meeting with the HR team to help them with some of their infrastructure items. And I asked them, I said, so how do you get employees to come into work every day? And they said, well, we have a great benefits package. We're trying our best to pay competitively, but we can't pay exactly at the market. But what we've done is we've invested in our people. We've conducted leadership training. We've had to reorganize. We've had to go back to our leaders and say, hey, look, you've got to like your people. You've got to talk to them. You've got to be compassionate to some of their needs. And if you don't want to do that, you're probably not in the right seat. And I said, wow, that's really impactful. How much money did you invest? And they said, well, we're not going to talk about that. But here's what I thought was really impactful. I said, so what are the results that you're seeing? And they said, we went from double-digit turnover to 2%. 2% in the meatpacking industry. That blew me away. And I said, so what does this mean to you? What does 2% mean to you? And she said, if I can get somebody to come in and work and come here for 9 months, they will stay. Because we will engage their family in this experience, and we will get them committed and part of a team. And we want this workplace to feel like family. And I thought, wow, that's a great message, isn't it? When we think about our workplaces, even in the most frigid condition, some of these basic principles of teaching people how to lead, how to be compassionate, how to talk about life and family matters with their team members, it's a really powerful experience. And I thought that was really exciting to hear that they'd accomplished that result. We can also be more effective as leaders if we have a really solid benefit strategy. And I just like to poll the group here on this particular topic, because one of the things that I've seen and I've heard from a lot of clients is that offering good employee benefits is just basic. Everybody expects it. Would you agree with that? So when you're hiring people, they need to see that you've got a basic package, but then they want more, don't they? How about what the stat says? 1 in 3 employees would forgo a pay increase in return for additional well-being offerings. That's what we're seeing, what our data is supporting. Does that sound about right to each of you? Well-being is a big deal. Being able to support your employees' well-being is something that we see as an emerging trend. And so thinking about those employee benefits and opportunities is a way where you can differentiate yourself and your company from others. So a couple of areas of focus. One is personalizing the experience. We're seeing that employees want to select more of the opportunities, more of the benefits, and some of our prior panelists have talked about that. We have to have that core benefit, but then we also need to customize that, maybe segment it for our generations. And right now our workforce has many generations and their needs are different. We also are going to be seeing that we're going to have to centralize some of our technology around this. Employees expect good tech, don't they? HR teams need good tech. And I know by working with our technology consulting team, there's a lot of consolidation taking place right now. That's going to be something we're going to need to think about. And while we're going through this journey, we can't forget number 4 here. How do we show that empathy to our employees while we're going through times of change? You know, this role of the leader is constantly evolving, and being empathetic is going to be one of those things that may not come natural for every leader, but it's a way we can actually talk to them and help educate them and bring them along to help connect with their teams. So this slide represents 6 key categories of the employee experience. And this really shows how we as leaders can deliver care throughout our organization. And I think one of the themes that we've probably heard already, and some of you can experience, is the feeling of appreciation. And knowing that the employee experience encompasses a whole lot more than just onboarding benefits. We're seeing things like purposeful work and having social connections and having professional growth and training opportunities. These are the things that our up and coming generations want to see from us. So how do we do this? This is probably one of my favorite slides. And if you stop by our table, we have a report about the trends in generational living right now and what's going on. What are the things that the generations are wanting? And one thing that I think is really interesting as you look at this slide, what's very common is the need for flexibility. Every generation wants some level of flexibility in how they're operating their jobs, whether they're working remotely, whether they're coming into the office. Maybe they need flexibility because of I'm caring for a parent and I'm also caring for a child. So when you think about the needs, this is such a powerful opportunity. How many of you here have all 4 generations in your workforce? Oh my goodness, almost all of you. So managing to the needs of these generations is pretty critical. I think what's really interesting as I read the research around some of the generational benefit requests, Generation Z is that generation that really wants to have holistic health and wellness benefits, and also thinking more about comprehensive health plans. So when you think about those level of benefits, that's very interesting for that generation. And then when we take a look at the millennials, they want remote work benefits. They want family leave and childcare, financial assistance. Again, some of those things, maybe tuition repayment programs, creative benefit plans to help support their needs. And then your Generation X, flexible scheduling and caregiving. And your boomers, they're there for stability, right? They want retirement plans and benefits to help support that stability factor. I do think that the mindset is important. And everybody here, each one of you in this room, has the opportunity to impact the mindset of your leaders, right? We're here as HR professionals and HR leaders who can go back and inspire those around us to think about the mindset. We all have that choice of how we show up at work, right? And sometimes we've got to remind the folks that we work with that that mindset is going to really help us foster our purpose, our mission, and why we come to work every day. And I think everybody in this room would probably agree with me that checking the box for just compliance-related things, that's just part of the job. It's not the job anymore, right? Our job is to lead and inspire and help others to understand the impact they can make on the employee and that employee experience. So let's talk a little bit about the intentionality of this. You know, this is a big role and a big ask sometimes that can be, challenging enough just with the day-to-day. But some of the things that we see as opportunities for businesses that want to get ahead of the curve of dealing with turnover and retention issues is to constantly look at how you're communicating with your employees. We've got to market to employees like we do to clients. HR teams, we've got to think about our role as marketers, and that is we are constantly talking to our employees about how great it is to work here, why you should stay here, what is happening in your organization that's different than other places. And I know from my own experience, a lot of my not-for-profit clients have a big advantage in this area because they have a mission, right? A lot of not-for-profits have that mission and it helps them attract people. So if we aren't in that area, how are we creating that mission? How are we connecting with employees so that they can do purposeful work? This next point, creating an onboarding experience. We see a lot of people putting together all this electronic onboarding. It's happening, isn't it? Because we have to deal with all the paperwork otherwise. But you have to remember, and what we're hearing in our research, is that experience cannot be replaced with just the tech. So finding ways to connect with people during that onboarding experience that requires some face-to-face interaction so that we can really get that one-to-one connection, get to know that person who is going to be joining the organization. Let them know the team, understand their personal needs to be empathetic as they're growing into their position. Now, this next point, engaging the family, this is kind of like what's old is new. And I think about early on in my career, I would get mailers from my employer at my home, whether it was retirement plans, employee benefits, here's some news. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting? It's showing up in my mailbox. Well, now what we're seeing is successful employers are also engaging the family, whether it's sending total compensation statements or total reward statements to the home to show the value of working at your workplace. Or maybe it's employee benefits information, or maybe it's just a message or an employee newsletter. Things that help engage the family, help reduce the propensity for that person to leave. So we're seeing more of that kind of come back into light. And I mentioned this already. Thinking about the purpose. What is the mission in your organization, right? How can you connect your employees with your purpose and how you're driving your business forward? When we can connect with those employees, research shows that that engagement is going to get us a lot better results, and we're going to bring those people along and have greater retention. So if we think about this overall and strategically, when we think about using intention, compassion, and empathy, those are the three criteria that really are going to help us escalate our strategy, our people, and our retention overall. Whether it's attracting talent, cutting some costs because we have to do more with less, or changing technology. When we keep this kind of mindset and being intentional about these matters, it's going to give us a lot more success in those three critical areas. So, with that said, if you'd like a copy of my presentation and some of the data that we've talked about, please stop by our table. We're going to have a break here in just a moment, and we have a tremendous amount of information on generations and how you and your organization can use some of this data to help build your strategies in the future. Thank you for having me with you today.